Hi everyone, and welcome back to Effective Leadership Strategies for the Workplace. Today we're going to cover part 2 of leadership competencies. So last week we covered some competencies that you would need to be an effective leader both for the organization, for yourself, with your teams, and some stumbling blocks or some roadblocks that you might encounter as you're kind of examining your leadership competencies. Today, we're going to cover a few more competencies that are imperative for you to be successful as a leader in the organization, a leader of teams, a leader of yourself. So let's start. As you're thinking about leadership competencies, one of the first things you need to do before you really dive into which competencies you have and which you don't is to really conduct an evaluation and assessment of your own personal skills. And that's a critical task that can often prove to be very challenging or difficult for leaders, right? That self-assessment, that ability to be self-aware about where your strengths and where your weaknesses lie is difficult for people. So you may want to ask colleagues, because those are people you lead with, supervisors, because those are people you lead for, and your team. It's imperative that you have that type of 360-degree feedback so you can better assess where you stand, which competencies you need to strengthen, which competencies you're already strong in, and can maybe mentor others to develop or strengthen their own competencies. So let's talk about important leadership competencies for you as a leader in an organization. It's important to be a quick study. How quickly do you master kind of the technical and the business skills? When something new is rolled out to you, a project, how do you assess where the priority needs to be, where the outcomes are expected to be, what your role is in making sure those priorities and outcomes are met in accordance with what your organization is expecting? So are you a quick study? If not, it's a skill that can be honed and refined and fine-tuned so that you can learn and train your brain on what to look for when new projects, new assignments, and new challenges present themselves in the organization. Decisiveness. Leaders have to make decisions. And sometimes they're very challenging or very tough decisions. Some of those depend on how well you're aligned with what the expectation is for your organization, but you have to be decisive as a leader. It's important to think about all of the stakeholders, all of the constituents that your decisions are going to affect and impact. How is this going to impact how people move through the day, how people get their goals accomplished, how you get your goals accomplished, and how you live that mission and vision of your organization? Sometimes you will make the wrong decision, but as the leader, remember, we constantly talk about accountability. You own that decision. You make the best decision that you can make with the information you have at the time. And that allows you to validate that decision. That allows you to present that decision so that you can explain to your constituents, to your stakeholders, the reasoning behind the decision, why that decision came to light. And make the best decision that you can. You can't get frozen because a decision is tough. So when you're thinking about leadership competencies for leading others, one of the most challenging things as a leader that you can do is to confront employees that are really struggling with adopting their role as a high quality employee. When you're dealing with difficult employees, one of the key things is to be fair as you have critical conversations about their performance and to be transparent. When you have a difficult or a challenging employee, your reasoning behind some of the consequences or some of the critical conversations that you have can't be a surprise to everyone. You have to set clear expectations right from the beginning, and those expectations apply to every employee, whether they're a challenging employee or not a challenging employee. So when you're holding people accountable for their performance, it's important that your expectations are clear and set early, and that you're consistent with those critical conversations and critical feedback, and that you're transparent. When you're leading others, another competency is you have to have respect for differences. Your team is going to be comprised of people from different parts of the globe, right? From different experiences, both life experiences and professional experiences. You have to adopt a stance where you have respect for people of difference, for styles of difference, for how people navigate this world because of their difference. and what a gift that is to you as a leader to be able to have that on your team. It informs decisions that you're going to make. It informs how you're going to move your role as a leader. It informs how you're going to support your team so that the experience for everyone on your team is equitable and creates a sense of belonging. When you're leading others, it's also important to have composure and to have self-awareness. You have to be able to control your own emotions when you're dealing with difficult situations. It doesn't mean to stuff them down, it doesn't mean to hide them, but it means as a leader leading others, not only do you have to be self-aware that your body is telling you, your mind is telling you that this is a tough area for you, that this is causing stress or upset for you, but you also have to be able to control those emotions that come along with that. So practicing some of that self-awareness and some of that self-control is important to do in advance of critical or challenging situations, so that when those situations rise up, you're prepared to automatically, it's like muscle memory, you're prepared to automatically manage that process. Be honest about how you're feeling. Be aware when you're starting to, kind of feel some upset in your body, in your physiology. Acknowledge that, be aware, but practice some self-control and some composure with how you display that and how you show up to work for your teams. As a leader of others, you want to also practice and think about how you help to instill and build a sense of responsibility around career management. It is up to each employee on your team to use that self-initiative, right? To take initiative when they identify opportunities and potential for growth. But it's also up to you as their leader to provide mentorship, consistent feedback, honest feedback, and career development and career opportunities. Sometimes a person doesn't want to grow vertically, but they want the opportunity to build their skill set and competencies so that they can attain the expectations and the competencies that are required of a leader. That makes them a stronger performer all the way around, and it helps to build your team. And finally, some problems that can stall your career is an issue with leading difficult and challenging teams. Every leader is going to have a team that sometimes has a difficult or a challenging personality on it. You have to be able to select and to motivate the right people to get your entire team to the finish line, right? To get your entire team to the goal of the mission of the division, of the organization, of the team. So it's important that, number one, you identify, do I have the right players on my team? If you inherit a team, you're going to go through a process of examination. You're going to go through a process of getting to know everybody on your team for yourself, not based on what other people have told you, but knowing for yourself. You're going to build that team, and then you're going to decide if you have the right players on your team. And if you don't, then you'll have to make those changes. And finally, something else that can stall a career is too narrow a functional orientation, meaning you haven't built your own skill set and you haven't encouraged the building of a skill set and a competency among your team to expand and to broaden the knowledge base. We have constantly talked about the importance of continuous learning, right? Not just settling for that role, but figuring out how can you do this better? How can you continue to evolve? Because when you evolve, your team evolves. When you have a clear understanding of the vision and the mission and you're aligned with that understanding, then you'll continue to build those skills and those competencies to make you and your team more well-rounded leaders. So thank you for joining us today on part 2 of Leadership Competencies. Remember, if you enjoyed this content and if it resonated with you, share it with your friends and tell them to log in right here on this very channel. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.